This is Horror Podcast.
Welcome to This is Horror, a podcast for readers, writers, and creators. I'm Michael David Wilson, and every episode I chat with the world's best writers about writing, life lessons, creativity, and much more. Today I am chatting with Jed Shepherd, the filmmaker and writer best known for Host and Dashcam. Now this is the second part of a two-part conversation, so if you missed part 1, you can head back just one episode to 664. But as with all of these, you can listen in any order, so by all means listen to this one now and go back to part 1 when you're done. And today we dive deeper into Jed Shepherd's films, specifically Dashcam, as well as get a load of great filmmaking and writing advice. So, if that sounds fun, get ready for an exhilarating 1-hour conversation. But before any of that, a quick advert break.
It was as if the video had unzipped my skin, slunk inside my tapered flesh, and become one with me.
From the creator of This is Horror comes a new nightmare for the digital age, The Girl in the Video by Michael David Wilson. After a teacher receives a weirdly arousing video, his life descends into paranoia and obsession. More videos follow, each containing information no stranger could possibly know. But who's sending them, and what do they want? The answers may destroy everything and everyone he loves. The Girl in the Video is The Ring meets Fatal Attraction for the iPhone generation. Available now in paperback, ebook, and audio. From the host of This is Horror Podcast comes a dark thriller of obsession, paranoia, and voyeurism. After relocating to a small coastal town, Brian discovers a hole that gazes into his neighbor's bedroom. Every night she dances and he peeps. Same song, same time, same wild and mesmerizing dance. But soon Brian suspects he's not the only one watching, and she's not the only one being watched. They're watching is The Wicker Man meets Body Double with a splash of Suspiria. They're Watching by Michael David Wilson and Bob Pastorella is available from thisishorror.co.uk, Amazon, and wherever good books are sold.
Okay, with that said, here it is. It is Jed Shepherd on This is Horror. So, for those who are really familiar with found footage and horror history, they might notice that the Zoom code in Host is connected to Ghostwatch. And
yeah,
I love that Easter egg. I love that you've also got in Flashback a Return to Oz play. So
yes,
it's part of the filmmaking repertoire to include at least a few homages even, in all of your films.
No, I don't think it's intentional. Well, obviously it is intentional, but I think that's just the kind of stuff I want to do, you know. And like, I wear my influences on my sleeve. So for Host, like there's you know, we pay homage to a whole bunch of things, but you know, Ghostwatch is a massive influence. I'm on the Ghostwatch documentary on the Blu-ray as well for Ghostwatch, because I love it so much, and I know a disproportionate amount about Ghostwatch, and like, you know, I've hung out with Leslie Manning and, you know, Stephen Volk, the director and the writer, a bunch of times now, and you know, they thankfully never get tired of me asking them questions about Ghostwatch. I've interviewed them for things in the past as well, and you know, I'm very obsessed with Ghostwatch because it's very influential in found footage, and I think a lot of Americans are now starting to, because it was unavailable in America for the longest time, but now Shudder has it mostly, and you know, people are doing screens of it. And, obviously Host, we have a couple of the camera moves are a lot to Ghostwatch. So, it's ridiculous. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Return to Us thing in Flashback, because a lot of people, because it happened so fast, a lot of people don't realize it. But I thought, because it's a Netflix original, so I thought, okay, this is so unnecessary, but Netflix are paying for this, so I'm gonna have one little bit where it flashes back to, very briefly, to a school play that was Return to Oz for some reason, and then all the kids dressed up like TikTok and Dorothy and the Wheelers and stuff. It's funny, and in the front row with meant to be the parents, they're Netflix execs, in the audience as well, because they were there on set, and I was just like, oh, you might as well be in it. But yeah, it was really fun, and I have a costume designer and makeup artist I use on absolutely everything. So they did amazing work, on these kids. So yeah, but I wear my heart on my sleeve, and my references are just out there to see, and they're quite obvious. And Return to Oz it's a real gateway horror. It's one of those things that get people into horror. And I love that movie so much. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I, of course, to begin with, saw The Wizard of Oz, but then, the next step is watch The Return to Oz, and
Yep.
holy shit, it it excited me in a way for kind of horror and monsters and just the surrealness that I don't even think I was aware of at the time.
Yeah.
And, it totally holds up today.
It does. It really, really does. And it's still scary. And the practical effects are so good as well. And Fritza Balk as Dorothy is incredible. The Pumpkinhead, and it's all so good. And the kind of stop motion claymation effects on some of it as well, with the Gnome King, is so good. And to this day, it doesn't even need to be anyone else around me. Every time I see something green, I touch it and say Oz, like they do in the film. Genuinely, you'll see me if you see me walking down the street. There's something green, I will touch it and say Oz. But it's I'm out of habit now. I just can't help it.
Yeah, no, I'd love for them to, put it back on the big screen. I want that cinematic experience. I've never seen it at the cinema.
Really? Well, that's the beauty of being in London, because the Prince Charles Cinema shows it sometimes.
The Prince Charles is so good. When I was living in London, I would get there as often as possible, because there were so many obscure things, and there were, premieres, or I guess exclusive showings of horror movies, like independent horror movies that you weren't getting anywhere else.
We had a screening of Flashback at the Prince Charles Cinema, and they put my name on the marquee outside, and that was it'd been up there for a couple of days, and I hadn't realised, because I hadn't checked my social media as well. So my social media, and everyone's adding me into pictures of them with my name on the marquee, and I was like, oh my god, why didn't anyone just call me and tell me? Because I didn't know they were going to do it. And yeah, so I love the Prince Charles. There's another new kind of indie cinema that's opened in London called The Nickel, and it shows kind of almost like grindhousey type movies, really obscure, more obscure than the Prince Charles. It's a 50-seater as well. They have VHS there. They have a bar downstairs. Opened, I think, October last year, so it's relatively new. But the Nickel in London is really cool as well. You'll see some real obscure horror movies in that place. Love it.
Yeah, I haven't been back to the UK since it opened. So then, the next time I'm in the UK, whatever's on, I'm going to go and see it.
Oh, yeah. And they do really cool double bills as well of just the most bizarre movies. Great place. Great place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, going back to Ghostwatch, I mean, I feel we've had some really defining moments in the found footage subgenre, and I mean that would be Ghostwatch in '92, the Blair Witch Project in '99. I think Paranormal Activity in 2007, and now host in 2020.
Yeah. I would put Wreck in between that as well. I'd put Wreck in between
Okay,
that as well.
Wreck,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I love Lake Mungo, but I recognize
Lake
that
Mungo.
unfortunately it's not quite tapped into the overall kind of mainstream
Yeah,
zeitgeist.
it's a bit of a slow burn, but it's an incredible movie.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So to have host in that conversation and to have been brought up on things like Ghostwatch and the Blair Witch Project, I mean, what is that like for you? And I guess from what you were saying before, you probably didn't anticipate that because you thought you were just putting something fun together.
Yeah, but like Jenny, horror movies have been, and horror literature has been part of my life since such an early age. And I think, it's a 10,000 hours thing. If you put that much passion into something, eventually it's going to pay off. I do truly believe it. And I spent so much time like dissecting horror movies with my friends, going to horror movies, going to like video shops and asking them for their list. You remember video shops used to have like a special list. You just go in and go, can I see the list? And they would bring out a list underneath the counter of all like the crazy horror movies they had that they've imported from around the world. I used to love that stuff. And I mean, it's extremely humbling and unbelievable really that host is in that conversation, and I still can't believe it. It's still very recent to me. I still can't believe it, and it's one of the highest rated, not just horror movies, but movies of all time on Rotten Tomatoes. They in December, I think it was, they named it the seventh best horror movie of all time. And it's every year it's either first or second and scariest movie of all time as well on those lists. And it just absolutely blows my mind because I didn't expect it. And you don't expect it from, some British guys from, and yeah, we don't have too many movies in that conversation from over here. So yeah, it's crazy. It's hard to describe. I remember it was maybe like a week after Host came out, and me and Rob, and the bubbles were open again because Boris Johnson had let us out for a little while until the next lockdown. But I remember me and Rob lived on the same road, so we'd hang out every day basically, and we went to our local Greasy Spoon cafe. This is a week after Host came out, and we were there eating egg and chips with the TV on. And we looked up, and there's us on ITV primetime news being interviewed because there's a delay in they record it in advance basically by a little bit. So we just done the interview with ITV News, like 6:00 news. Then went to this cafe and sat there just to talk, and then we see ourselves on this big screen, and everyone in the cafe is looking at us like, oh, and we were just like, this is so strange. This is so weird. And then, we did like interviews for the BBC and stuff, and it would just, people came out of the woodwork and were just, oh my God, just saw you on TV. Like, what the hell? And, in the Host letter, everything really. And those films you mentioned, I'm genuinely friends with most of those people who made those movies now. Eduardo Sanchez, who wrote and directed the Blair Witch Project, I went to dinner with his family 2 weeks ago. And I've been to his house and took a tour of his Star Wars toys, and we've hung out in the woods together making stick men and stuff. It's crazy. And the same with the Ghostwatch guys. I've had dinner with them multiple times now, and it's insane. And it really, sometimes I forget the influence Host has had on British film and also just horror in general. Because like the Blair Witch Project, after the Blair Witch Project, there were a lot of kind of copycat found footage films that came out, and Host. There's a lot of movies very similar to Host that came out straight after, and still now actually. But I kind of enjoy them because like it's flattering. So yeah, it's very interesting seeing people try and capture what we did with Host, and it just proves how difficult it is and how well everyone involved did with Host, especially the cast, because that friendship dynamic cannot be replicated, and people have tried. But the thing is, they were real friends, so yeah, it's crazy to me. I don't quite understand what's going on.
And I mean, I haven't asked, but how did the Blumhouse deal come about?
Host, basically, because, blew up straight away. Like, literally day one, the same day it was released, I remember reading, I think it was Bloody Disgusting, or Dread Central, one of them. They posted, "This is the scariest movie of the decade." Not scariest movie of the year, scariest movie of the decade. And we were like, our hosts, like, because we didn't see it like that, and we were like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Then all the interviews requests started coming in, like literally 20 a day. We were like, what is going on? And then we get all the TV requests, all the radio interview requests, and we were like, this is something. And then just universally, just all the reviews started coming in, and they were just like 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5. And, for the longest time, we were 100% of Rotten Tomatoes until I think maybe just like last year, and it dropped down to like 99 or whatever it is now. But yeah, it's insane to me. But yeah, sorry, for the Blumhouse thing. So because, they're good at what they do, Blumhouse, and they find up and coming filmmakers. So, we were on their radar before Host. We'd had a bunch of means with Blumhouse to see if anything clicked for 2 or 3 years before Host. But because of Host, they already knew who we were. So they were like, okay, we want you to come and do some stuff with us. And yeah, that's how it works. That's how it works for everyone. You make one film, and then Blumhouse comes calling, basically, if anyone liked the first one. But yeah, it was simple as that, really. Really simple.
And so then a year later, you released Dashcam. So for those unfamiliar, what is the elevator pitch for Dashcam?
Dashcam is about a woman who live streams from herself rapping from a car, and she does this in LA, but she wants to get away from everything in LA, from politics and COVID stuff. So she comes to the UK to see her old bandmate Stretch, who she was in a band with, and she proceeds to make his life a living hell, just being a complete crazy person, and steals his car and is paid to pick up a woman, and she thinks this is just an Uber ride, but the woman turns out she's possessed, basically. Yeah, and that's basically what it was. And after Host, we could pitch anything and it would get made, really. So, but we had the idea for Dashcam before Host, and I think we'd already pitched it to Blumhouse and they passed. I want to say that. And then afterwards they were like, no, come back. We'll do Dashcam. But yeah, like Dashcam is so. Annie Hardy, who's the lead in Dashcam, she really does do that in real life. She drives around rapping in her car on live stream. And I've been friends with her for like 10 years at least. Like I said, she was in a band called Giant Drag. They were pretty big, played Coachella and played all over the place. She was named in Enemy's top 50 coolest people in the world, a few years back. So I've been friends with her for a while, and I've been in her car when she always drives me around LA. Stayed at her house, and I've been there when she's doing her band car thing. People write suggestions on the chat, and she drives around and she raps to it. These funny rhymes are always like blue. I was like, Annie, I can see this being a movie. So I just pitched it to Rob. I was like, I got this idea for a horror movie. this lady called Annie Hardy drives around. She picks up a hitchhiker, or she picks up someone, and that person's possessed, and then she has to deal with that. That was kind of the elevator pitch, and sent Rob a whole bunch of Annie's videos, jumped on Zoom, spoke to her, and yeah, we wanted to do the same thing as Host, so we wanted it to be as real as possible, but with absolutely fantastical elements, because we had a much bigger budget, so we knew we could throw the kitchen sink at it. But we still had, it was the second lockdown, so we couldn't go to LA. So we, because the whole thing was going to be set in LA, but we couldn't do that because of lockdown. We weren't allowed in America. So we got Annie to come to the UK, and because that was a lot easier. And yeah, we shot it around Margate and parts of Kent and Norwich, sorry, Norfolk. And we made this crazy movie, and our whole thing was, we wanted it to be almost like the anti-Host, an antidote to Host, and to try and inject some actual horror back into horror movies. And I think we achieved making a movie that is unlike anything else that has come out of the UK.
No, I think that's an accurate statement. And yeah. I mean, while Host goes all out in the final 10 minutes, Dashcam is all out within the first 10 minutes, and then it just never stops. And yeah. I mean, so it almost feels like they're in the same universe, and Dashcam is a continuation of the madness of Host.
Yeah, I mean, that was our first plan. Our first plan was for it to be set genuinely at the same time as Host, and I guess it technically is, because it's like lockdown times. There is obviously a crossover because Gemma's in it, and Gemma's called Gemma in it, we do. You have to kind of watch with a fine-tooth comb, because there are a lot of references to Host in it as well. Lots of crossovers in the chat. You see people talking about, like, did you hear about those girls on Zoom who died and all that kind of stuff? And so there is like a lot of crossover. So especially because like Salen from Host is the woman that pays Annie to take the possessed person. So that has that crossover as well. And actually, Rob put Salen in Boogeyman as well as a psychic. So I guess that there's even an even more extended universe there. But there is, it's an absolutely insane movie, and I think as time goes on, more and more people are discovering it, it fills me with joy that people have watched this crazy movie, that we made in the second lockdown.
Yeah, and much like Host, this was co-written again with Rob Savage and Gemma Hurley. Mm-hmm. What did the co-writing process look like? And I mean, was it a case of one of you taking an initial pass, or were you writing this in real time? I know that you said that you had the idea to begin with, but I wonder what the logistics look like.
Yeah, we were a little bit more professional on this time, even though we wrote it literally a month after Host came out. We wrote it in like August, September, and Host had come out on July 31st, so it was like immediately after Host. But I had become friends with the people at Final Draft, and so I think I got Rob Final Draft, and maybe an update for Gemma. But anyway, they had in the new version of Final Draft, they finally fixed their collaborative feature, because it's been terrible for years in Final Draft. It always crashes. But yeah, we used the collaborative feature in Final Draft, so we basically all had the script in front of us, and we would just like type away suggestions and just fill it out as we went along. Very similar process to Host, really. A collaborative document, just filling in things. But I would say with Dashcam, there was a lot more. It was a much bigger document than the one we had for Host, because so much happens. So it was a little bit more planned. But still, I would say it took us, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks maximum to write it. And yeah, what you see on screen is pretty much almost exactly what we wrote. So obviously Annie, you can't predict sometimes what she's going to say, and there's improv element with any found footage film. But it's pretty faithful to what we originally wrote. Besides a couple of things towards the end, but yeah, it's fun to work that way because and again, I think because it happened so fast, we want to do another fast movie. We didn't really think too much about doing multiple drafts. Like I think I want to say maximum we did like 2 drafts, 3 drafts maybe, and then and then we made it and then released it the next year. Because the post and that one took a little bit longer because of there's a million VFX and stunts in it, but crazy stuff. But again, it was made up of a lot of the kind of horror set pieces that me and Rob had in mind for the longest time, and we wanted to put on film.
And of course, with Annie Hardy, there's a real energy about her and a certain amount of unpredictability. So what was it like working with her?
Annie's awesome. I think she rubs people up the wrong way, and I can understand why. Because sometimes she has no filter, and we live in a world where that is not necessarily enjoyed by a lot of people, and I can completely understand that. Sometimes she's her own worst enemy, but Annie is honestly, she's a lovely person. And so what we did with Dashcam is we wanted to show people what it would be like if someone who has slightly different views from you is the protagonist of a horror film. The horror audience is very left-leaning. So we were like, the real horror here is you're empathizing with a character that isn't like the normal horror movie protagonist. And I think in general, people seem to have a problem with problematic women as protagonists. If it was a man, they would have an Oscar, but because it's a woman, people have a problem with that. So yeah, she got a lot of hate. She gets a lot of love too, but she got a lot of hate for her because people hated her character and they think that she's exactly that person. But I promise you, Annie isn't rolling around stealing cars and fighting demons and blowing things up. Like she's really not doing that. She's in her house knitting, like genuinely, and looking after her chickens. Annie's awesome to work with. No problems at all.
Yeah, and while she was playing a exaggerated version of herself, obviously, as you've alluded to, some members of the general public or the audience perhaps didn't get that and thought it was a more faithful interpretation of Annie. So I'm wondering, were there any controversies as a result of Annie Hardy and her character, and how did you navigate them?
I remember when it first premiered at TIFF, so that was like a good 7-8 months before it actually came out. So, and the audience reaction was really good, but a couple of the journalists from there posted their kind of early TIFF reviews, just saying that it was a very controversial movie because of the protagonist. And I just didn't understand that. I was like, this is a horror movie. We're meant to be horrified. Like, why are we living in a world that's so sterile that we can't tell fact from fiction, and that we're offended by a horror movie? Horror movies are meant to offend. It's a horror movie. It's not called a peaceful, chill time movie. It's a horror movie. But I think that made it a bit more infamous, and that directly led to, I believe, I think it was Odeon Cinemas banned Dashcam. And it was funny, and we only found out because someone on Twitter or Instagram posted their chat with a Odeon staff member, because they were asking when's Dashcam coming out on the live chat, and the Odeon member, we will not have that movie at Odeon. We do not believe in movies like this, and like so. And that got picked up by all the news outlets and made people go, "Oh, what's this Dashcam movie?" And so I was like, "Why is this so controversial?" And don't forget, a lot of people were calling it controversial, and they hadn't seen it because it wasn't even out yet. But like the reaction from people, "Oh my god, I can't believe there's a movie where a woman does this, a woman does that," and they hadn't seen the movie. But the funny thing is, it premiered at the London Film Festival at Prince Charles Cinema and got the best reaction. Everyone still talks about that screening because people were hooting and hollering and jumping up, and it was insane. And Paul, who runs the Prince Charles Cinema, I remember him running past me halfway through the film. He said, "Sorry, I'm going to puke." Because he'd seen it affected him so much he had to go puke outside. And I love that, especially at the London Film Festival. And it's funny because like the film journalists over here and all over Europe actually absolutely loved it. But I think in America it was too close to home, because we're holding a mirror up to what's going on over there, and yeah, they didn't like it. So it's real fun for me to see, because I think every other week, if you go on like the horror subreddit on Reddit, there's a post about Dashcam, and people fight to the death over Dashcam. Some people absolutely love it, and then some people absolutely hate it. And for me, that's a successful horror movie. Like, I love that.
Yeah, you don't want everyone to have a kind of lukewarm, it was all right reaction.
Exactly.
You want it to be polarizing, and
exactly.
I mean, for Odeon to say, "Oh, we don't support or we don't screen films like that," I'd be like, "Well, like what?"
Don't
Can
forget,
you be more
they hadn't ever
specific?
seen.
Yeah, so
They hadn't seen it. It premiered at the London Film Festival and blew everyone away. But yeah, and then it was like literally on the TV, on the news, like Dashcam banned, blah blah blah. And we were like, "What is going on?" Like, but like it's like everything we do, like, we're always just like, "What's going on?" Like, this is crazy.
I mean, in a way, what Odeon did was give you invaluable publicity, because it's so bloody hard to have the equivalent of a video nasty or to actually get
That's
banned
exactly it.
these days. So they gave you a gift.
They called it a video nasty as well. Like, and like, but the thing is, I read about all the video nasties and watched documentaries on them, and about how, at the time, like, Sam Raimi had to appear in court for The Evil Dead because some people thought like a woman was really being attacked by a tree and being abused and stuff. He had to appear in court for that, and and that's one of the best horror movies of all time. So it happens, but I actually don't blame anyone for not liking a movie or hating the protagonist, because everyone's different, and I think as long as people watch it and as long as people have some kind of feelings for it, like that's enough for me. The worst reaction would be absolute apathy and just a meh response, but I don't think you could ever have a meh response with Dashcam. It's either you love it or you hate it.
Yeah, and I mean, what you're saying about Sam Raimi, it reminds me of a particularly nasty, visceral film called August Underground.
Oh yeah. Those movies are crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, I believe with that there was a story where I think it was either the director or writer, and they were kind of being held because they felt like this is a snuff movie. This woman is dead, and she actually had to appear to prove, like, look, it was a film. But
same with Cannibal Holocaust. Like, they had to appear in court as well and brought the woman that was on the spike to say, look, she's alive, she's not dead. But yeah, it's all the stuff wrapped up with interest in horror films. It always has a kind of reaction, and I think it's quite interesting, the reaction something like Dashcam got overseas with in America compared to in Europe, where there was literally I think it was an Independent or Guardian article about Dashcam saying that these guys are, generational talents and stuff. And then over in America, it's like these guys are warped, crazy, yeah, it's insane. It was like, hey, we're just two guys like in London, it's nuts. But hopefully, that changes. And I also think because we're British, people don't expect that kind of movie from British people. They expect, Keira Knightley swinging around in a see-through dress, like not flipping Annie Hardy having to clean up vomit and puke and piss and shit from a car and slipping in piss, and that's not what they expect from a British movie. So
yeah, I think the craziest decision from Annie Hardy, the character in that film, is just that she takes the woman into the car to begin with. It's very clear that she is not in a good way. So that was almost the most unbelievable part, which is ridiculous when you think about all the things that happen. But it's like
yeah, we thought that as well. But like, I think I remember saying, okay, here's where we should say, like, Annie was like, nope, I don't want to do it. And then she gets offered an envelope of money, and then it cuts to her saying, I'm a really nice person. People call me a really nice person, because she just did it for the money. There's loads of crazy stuff in there. Sometimes I watch Dashcam, and I haven't watched it in quite a while now. But like the last time I watched it, I was just like, I can't believe we made this movie. It's because it's like insane, and like just the audacity of us doing the things we did. Like, you could only make that movie coming off the back of something like Host, because no one else would have let us make it. So I'm really happy that we got to make our Evil Dead 2, basically.
Yeah, I mean, when I was talking to Mick Garris, I was talking about how wild Sleepwalkers was for the time, and some of the things that they put in there. I mean, I say for the time, that would still be pretty fucking wild if it came out.
Mick's a good friend of mine. Like I was just hanging out with him in LA, and he's always in London as well. So I hang out with him every time he's here. But Mick is one of the most incredible filmmakers you'll ever meet. And I know I haven't listened to the episode you did with him, but like, I'm sure he had the best stories, because like every time I'm with Mick, I learn something about filmmaking, about life in general. Like, he's a wise person, and just a real great guy. He's coming back over here soon as well, so I'll get to hang out with him again. I always love me and him. Last time we went to I took him to Milton Keynes we went to see Inside Number 9 on stage in Milton Keynes, because Mick loves Inside Number 9 and Inside Number 9 guys. But crazy times.
Yeah, I mean, Inside Number 9 is one of, if not my favorite anthology series.
So good.
I mean, actually, like, if you count Masters of Horror, which it is a anthology series, but because each film is made by someone different, it's a bit of a niche, then Masters of Horror and Inside Number 9 would be tied for first place.
Both, like, Inside Number 9 is incredible, and just the fact, I love all those guys: Steve Pemberton, Reece Shearsmith, and obviously the League of Gentlemen guys with Jeremy Dyson included. Like, the bringing horror to British TVs is so rare, and they've managed to do it for the longest time. And then they use their skills to transfer it to the theatre as well. And with Jeremy Dyson did Ghost Stories, and then they did Inside Number 9, and like, those guys are so amazing as well. And I've got to know them over the last couple of years as well, and it's been really, like, awesome. And I want to see more stuff from them.
Yeah, and of course, not forgetting Psychoville, which was another.
Was great. Love Psychoville. Yeah, so good. The amazing guys, and hopefully I get to work with them on some stuff soon.
Wow, that would be really fascinating to see what together you all come up with. So
yeah, it could be sooner than you think. You never know. We'll see.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Flashback, which came out in 2023 and is a short film on Netflix, this is tonally very different. I love too that you're setting up that the only thing people can expect is the unexpected, or to not know what you're going to do, because, you know, Host to Dashcam, that was one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there was almost a logical continuation. But
Yeah.
Dashcam to Flashback, it's so understated. There's something very poignant and beautiful. There's a reflection on life and death. It's, of course, has something very Groundhog Day and Russian Doll about it. So
yeah.
what was the experience working on it, and how did it land with Netflix?
So Netflix came to me. They approached my manager and said, "Hey, what's Jed got? And was Jed got any ideas to work with us?" And they were like, "Okay, we do this thing every year, which is called the Immersion Filmmaker of the Year thing," and they wanted me to be the Immersion Filmmaker of the Year for them 2023. And I was like, "Sounds good to me." And then, so basically they were like, "Okay, we'll make this little short film and then we'll see where that goes." So yeah, it was a Netflix original from the start. They came to me wanting to do it, and then, you know, I had a bunch of ideas, and, you know, I pitched them a whole bunch of things. Some of them more horror, but Flashback, which is basically a sci-fi film, that's the one that they grabbed onto straight away. And so much so, they made me sign the contract for the feature-length version, like, there and then as well. I had to sign the feature version that, you know, I'm going to write at some point over to them too. And it was fun because, you know, I had a really good team, and, you know, used a lot of the same people that I always work with. Gemma's the lead in this again, like, and actually, all the host girls are in it. Like, you know, blink and you'll miss it, but all the host girls are in Flashback. I just wanted to do something a bit different as well, like, you know, because people know me for, you know, horror and scares and stuff, and I wanted to do something that was a little bit more, you know, meaningful and emotional. And one of my favorite movies of all time is, and again, a lot of people may not have seen this, but it's a 1980 Christopher Reeve movie called Somewhere in Time. And it's Christopher Reeve is the lead, and he plays a writer, a playwright, in fact, and he falls in love with a picture of a woman from the 1920s, and he is obsessed with this picture, and so much so that he goes back in time and to find her and make her fall in love with him. And I absolutely love everything to do with that movie, and not enough people have seen it. Amazing soundtrack, and I watch that movie it's my comfort movie. I watch it all the time, and yeah, it's pure sci-fi. And Jane Seymour plays the woman he goes back to in time to see. And in that film, there is no time machine. He does it through thought. Like, because he obsessed with her so much so that, you know, the space and time isn't anything compared to the love he has for this woman that he's never met before. So, like, I have that in the back of my mind. Okay, a time travel movie without a machine. That I kind of like that idea. But then I wanted to tie in, like, a kids' TV show and a monster. So Dr. Bones was born, and I think I had the Dr. Bones theme song in my mind for a long time. I don't know why, like, even before, like, Flashback. And, you know, working with Netflix, and, you know, I knew that I could do a few things I wouldn't be able to do before, like, you know, Netflix have a bigger budget. I got to meet everyone at Netflix, all the different departments, and I learned a lot from that process, just what all the departments at Netflix do, and really, really interesting. And, you know, the VFX in Flashback are, like, unbelievably good for a short film. the kind of time travel spinny sequence, which, like, I can go back to that to point to people like, this is what I can do. If you give me the money, I can do a swirly time travel-y thing if you want me to. But like, the great thing with Flashback that I'll always remember is that, obviously it was great working with Netflix, but Sam Raimi was my mentor on the whole project as well. So I would, talk to him about the script, and then in production, like, he was helping with that too. And then in post, he helped with my edit and some of the effects and things. So he helped me all the way through it, which was really, really cool. Just to be able to bounce ideas of someone like Sam Raimi, because he's experimented with like different genres as well. Like, he's done sci-fi and superhero and dramas and stuff. So and he was loving it as well. So, and I also like, and another thing I wanted to throw in, I was like, I really want to do something in a laser quest. So I was just like, oh, Netflix have money. Let's go have a big scene with loads of kids running around with lasers in a laser quest. And yeah, so we did it. It was like me playing in like a someone else's toy box for a little while, and made like a Dr. Bones arcade machine, and it was so cool. And because like all the host girls were there as well. It was really nice, and really interesting.
Yeah, Laser Quest feels like such a British birthday party event, like so many childhood memories. Yeah.
Yeah. The scene where you see her birthdays as she kind of gets older, until she's like 13 or something, and like the Laser Quest like changes to kind of to match that. It's it's really cool to be able to do it in a real Laser Quest, one of the actual real Laser Quests left in London, in Enfield, in fact. We filmed it in. So yeah, it was fun, and Pip's in it. Pip plays Gemma's dad, but little Gemma's dad. It's great to work with him on that, and Amma, who was in Dashcam, he plays Stretch in Dashcam. He plays Gemma's boyfriend again for the second time in this. I just like working with the same people over and over again. It just makes it easy for me because I know them, they're my friends, and if I could, I would just cast my friends in it and everything. It would just make things a lot easier. And Netflix were like so open to me, just basically doing it my way. And they trusted me, and we the great thing with Netflix is they show you the stats, of how many people have watched it around the world and stuff, and it exceeded expectations like a lot. But it did really, really well in Japan. Coincidentally, it did. I don't know why. Like, no one can figure out. It did really well in Japan. Did really well in India. And it did really well in South America, like above North America and the UK. Insane.
Yeah, I know that in Japan, Host is just simply called Zoom, because I rewatched it ahead of our conversation, and it was like, oh, it's called Zoom.
Yeah, yeah, it's called Zoom. And I remember like Emily at Shudder saying, okay, like in different regions it would work better under different names, and I was like, I really just wanted it to be called Host, but she was right. I think in Mexico it was called Don't Pick Up the Phone. For some reason it was called that. And then in Russia, weirdly, it was called Astral 2, because there was a horror movie that did really well over there called Astral. So they wanted to, so the distributors over there was just like, oh, let's make this a sequel to Astral. So it was called Astral 2, and it did well over there too. So yeah, it was very interesting, because it was really my first foray into like releasing something worldwide. So I learned a lot from that process.
I wonder what even the legalities are of just like, right, Astral did well, we're going to call it Astral 2, like, and Can I be like, this is the remains of the day 2, and just slap it on?
Yeah.
Project?
Well, I haven't even seen Astral, but like I'm guessing there was similar in theme. I have no idea, but they were so sure and they were right. It worked. So yeah, and like it's called Zoom in a bunch of places around the world as well. Which I wonder how Zoom feel about that, because I don't know if there was permission to name it after their actual app. But yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that they surely can't have copyright on the word Zoom because it's too common a word. But
Yeah.
the WWF World Wildlife Federation sued the wrestling company, so
Yeah.
who knows?
Exactly. But hopefully, hopefully in those regions where they saw it under different names, they did a little bit of research and they saw it as Host. Though I do have the posters of like it's saying Zoom and the other regions. I have all those posters because it's quite funny to me.
Yeah. Now, I wonder, what does a typical working day and a typical working week look like for you? Because obviously you have a number of projects, you're writing, you're pitching, you're going on set. What is a typical day and a typical week?
I wish there was a typical day and a typical week, but it's always different. Like I can tell you what I'm doing like on Monday. Like so I've got a script I need to finish a new draft of. I am on a project which is coming out on BBC One on Halloween. Can't say what it is, but it's that Ghostwatch slot, that juicy Ghostwatch slot. So I am really happy about that. So that's being filmed right now. So I'm on call for that. I'm a producer on an upcoming movie. It's another found footage movie, but it's with a very, very big director. We're producing it together, and it's being released through a big studio. So that hopefully that's soon. I think we'll start shooting that this year. I've got a folk horror film that we are casting right now. So I've just got an update today about the casting on that. I'm a producer on a whole bunch of other projects as well, and pitching a whole bunch of things. But you have to have a lot of irons in the fire because you don't know what's going to spark. You don't really know. So yeah, but that's the thing. Creators have to be creative in order to keep doing this stuff.
And do you have a typical time when you prefer to write, or that you set aside as your writing time?
Yes. Well, it's actually changed recently because it used to be 9 a.m. to 12 would be solid writing. And I got that from one of your former guests, actually, Paul Tremblay. And he got that from Stephen King. So yeah, because like I'm friends with Paul, and I'm always asking questions about writing. But he asked me questions about writing. And I'm like, Paul, you're the master. You wrote Head Full of Ghosts, one of the greatest horror books of all time. But yeah, he said like he writes in the morning basically, and then stops, and then does his life admin stuff and spends time with his kids and stuff. And I think that's really useful to have a set time every single day to do your writing, and then spend your life living rather than procrastinating at a blank screen. So yeah, I always set like a block of time, like 3 hours a day. But it used to be in the morning, but now I am much more productive in the evening times. So I write under the cover of darkness now. I put music on, and it's always a soundtrack to like what the potential movie is going to be. So I make a playlist and I play that while I'm writing to get me in the mood. I love doing stuff like that.
It's interesting that you bring up Paul, because I would say, in terms of books that we have, that A Head Full of Ghosts is as close to a found footage book
Yeah.
as we've got. Although recently, Josh Malaman, with Incidents Around the House, has given A Head Full of Ghosts a run for its money in terms of like being the master of found footage horror books. But I mean, both are essential reading.
Oh yeah. And with and both have been made into a movie right now, and
Yeah.
like I cannot wait to see Head Full of Ghosts, because I speaking to Paul, I know the process he's been through with that film and the adaptation of it. It's been a long road, and obviously I was trying to get in there myself as well. I was like, Paul, you need to let me do this, and he was like, well, these people have the rights, but that's lapsing some other people. But then it's so highly sought over. So I believe that the version that's going to be made now is the true version, because previous versions weren't true to the book, but now this version, according to Paul, is closer to what he wrote, and what he wrote was masterful. So I cannot wait.
Yeah, well, this happens often, that you'll have something that's up for film adaptation, and then for whatever reason the rights are let go of or lapse,
Yeah.
but then the second person, or the third or fourth or fifth in some cases, have a better vision, and so then the film that is ultimately made, it is the one that you would have wanted to have been
Yeah.
made in the first place. I mean, at the moment, I'm going through a similar process with one of my books, The Girl in the Video. It was originally with Netflix, and
Yeah.
they had a script and everything, but it just veered a little bit too far from the original source material. But
Yeah. It was
right,
okay. It was okay.
yeah, but right now, there's a new screenwriter on board. We're pitching it at the moment, and it's so just accurate as to what I wanted. So
Oh, nice. That's cool.
yeah, I think sometimes a no now is because there's a better yes in the future, right? I think that's a good
Exactly.
way to look at things.
Oh yeah, like positivity breeds positivity. Like
Yeah,
I'm always a glass half full person, and you really have to be. And I think when all is said and done, and like I'm at the end of my life, I want to look back and be like, okay, I was mostly positive, which I think helps you more. If you're always moaning, because I see a lot of people moaning online about their projects not being greenlit and this and that, and I'm like, keep that to yourself. You don't need to broadcast that. Keep it to yourself, or among your friends. Don't spread negativity online, because that negativity will come straight back at you. But it's hard, because it's a real hard game, like trying to be creative. So I understand when people feel the need to vent sometimes.
yeah. I get it, but I also just try to get on with things. It's like, well, even if that one hasn't been greenlit, there's a ton of other things that I'm doing at the moment, and
Oh yeah.
I just try and think about any action I take, what will it ultimately achieve? Me getting upset about something being passed on or not greenlit or whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
not going to actually benefit me. It's not going to result in a good opportunity. So I think if I'm really upset, it's like, okay, fine. Give yourself 5 minutes to be upset about it,
Yeah.
and now move on.
Exactly.
But I mean, we're coming up to the time that we have together today.
Yeah.
But I want, before we go, there is a video game that you have in the works called
Mhm.
Ghosts. So
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
little bit interested to find out about that. But I also want to know about your journey as a gamer, as a fan of horror video games. I mean, is
Mhm.
this something that you've been into for a long time? Do you remember the
Yeah.
first horror video game that you played?
Yeah, there's actually a documentary coming out while I'm in it. We're talking about this very thing. Yeah, I think the first horror video game I played was the original game I think it was for the C64, maybe it was the Amiga, for Friday the 13th, which I love that. To this day, I still love how scary that game is. And it's like, 8-bit, and it's still scary, and the music's scary. But my video game it's a live action video game, with the host girls, and been a long process, but finally it's going to come out, and it's fun because like the thing is with like being a storyteller, you want your stories to reach as many people as possible, and the games industry is far bigger than the film industry. Like think 5 times bigger. So if you want to tell a story, and you want it to reach as many people as possible, video games are a real start. And the crossover between video games and films, it's becoming a paper thin. I just watched Exit 8. I went to a screen of it a couple of days ago.
I literally watched it a day ago too.
Yeah, it's so good. I think it's the best video game adaptation I've ever seen, and such a good movie. I love it. And most people won't even know it's a video game, which is great. But the film is great as a standalone. And I think horror filmmakers, especially, should look into video games because it's becoming easier to make. It's becoming, you can learn how to do some of the stuff yourself, but like there is a lot of crossover between the video game audience and the film audience, of course. So we're going to see that a lot more. I had a meeting last week. I've been offered. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I've been offered to write and direct a popular video game adaptation, and so that process is happening as we speak. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know if I want to go down that route, but I'm letting the process happen organically and see what happens. But it would be a real interesting one to do. See what my take is on that particular video game.
Oh, well, I'm totally intrigued about that, and I might have to ask you off air what we're talking about here. But to kind of finish, I want to know, what is the best and what is the worst writing advice that you have ever been given?
I think it was Paul Tremblay when he said, just spend 3 hours a day writing and then go and do the rest of your life stuff. And honestly, that's been really helpful for me because, I used to be the kind of person that would just sit in front of a blank page all day and just absolutely, go crazy trying to write something interesting. But then when I know I only have a short space of time, a small window to write in, it's so free and it just comes out. And the rest of the time you can still think about it and you can so tomorrow I'm going to put this in. You can still make notes, and then the next day you have like a bunch of notes, you have a bunch of thoughts, and you write that in, and it just becomes a lot more organic and easy to kind of write if you set a certain amount of time, I think. So that's been really, really helpful. And I think that maybe the worst advice, and it wasn't one person in general, but I feel like, especially for screenwriters, some people feel that if you're not using the right software, you're not using Final Draft, then you're not a writer. That's complete tosh. Write on anything. Write in Notes. Write it in Word. Write it in Google Docs like we did with Host. Doesn't matter. If the story's good, the story's good. And if someone judges you because you haven't spent 300 quid on some software, then they're not the person you want to be making a movie with. It does look nice in Final Draft format, I will say that, but you don't necessarily need it. So, and just the other general advice that I would say for myself is just be nice to everyone. Like it's free, and you can do it easily. Just be nice to people, and if you see people doing well, support them. If you see people not doing well, support them. Because that could easily be you in either of those situations, and you want people to kind of come around and support you. So just be very supportive to your fellow filmmakers, especially in the UK, because it's really hard. And that's it, really.
All right. Well, where can listeners and viewers connect with you?
I'm only really on Instagram now, so at Jed Shepherd, JedSheperd. I do have a Twitter handle, but I haven't used Twitter in about 2 years, I think now, maybe a year, just because it's crazy on there. So I really only use Instagram, and I barely even post. I'm going to try and be that person that isn't on social media, unless I have something to promote. Then maybe I will have to be. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram basically, or in real life in London at horror events and screenings. I'm always there.
All right. Well, this has been a tremendous pleasure chatting with you, getting
You too,
to
man.
learn more about your films and your creative process. So thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
Do you have any final thoughts to leave the listeners and viewers with?
My final thoughts are: watch the 1984 classic Night of the Comet, and because it's the greatest movie ever made.
Thank you so much for listening to Jed Shepherd on This Is Horror. Join me again next time when I will be chatting with returning guest and former podcast co-host Dan Howarth about his brand new book, Drone. But if you would like that and every other episode ahead of the crowd, please do support the podcast at patreon.com/This Is Horror. Now, I would also like to tell you that my first ever limited edition hardcover is now available to pre-order from thunderstormbooks.com. Thunderstorm are putting out a very special edition of Daddy's Boy, including bonus content. The new limited edition hardcover will include brand new artwork from Ben Baldwin, and you can see that at thunderstormbooks.com right now, a foreword from David Moody, an afterword called Grandad's Boy, and a Daddy's Boy glossary, which is full of obscure references to minor celebrities and British phrases. Now, the print run will be determined by the number of pre-orders, so please do pre-order. In many ways, this is my most important release. It is certainly my most limited, and with a Daddy's Boy movie in the works, this could become a huge collectible in the future. So again, to pre-order the Daddy's Boy limited edition, head over to thunderstormbooks.com. Okay, before I wrap up, a quick advert break.
From the host of This Is Horror podcast comes a dark thriller of obsession, paranoia, and voyeurism. After relocating to a small coastal town, Brian discovers a hole that gazes into his neighbor's bedroom. Every night she dances and he peeps. Same song, same time, same wild and mesmerizing dance. But soon Brian suspects he's not the only one watching, and she's not the only one being watched. Their watching is The Wicker Man meets Body Double with a splash of Suspiria. They're Watching by Michael David Wilson and Bob Pastorella is available from thisishorror.co.uk, Amazon, and wherever good books are sold.
It was as if the video had unzipped my skin, slunk inside my tapered flesh, and become one with me.
From the creator of This Is Horror comes a new nightmare for the digital age, The Girl in the Video by Michael David Wilson. After a teacher receives a weirdly arousing video, his life descends into paranoia and obsession. More videos follow, each containing information no stranger could possibly know. But who's sending them, and what do they want? The answers may destroy everything and everyone he loves. The Girl in the Video is The Ring meets Fatal Attraction for the iPhone generation. Available now in paperback, ebook, and audio.
As always, I would like to end with a clip from a previous episode. And today's clip is taken from episode 653, in which Mick Garris talks about his first experiences with and interest in horror. So with that said, here is Mick Garris.
I was always the oddball who loved horror from the time I was a little kid. One of the first movies I remember seeing was Son of Kong on television. And I was totally captivated by it. Then the whole Universal horror package with my local TV station. You know, I discovered monsters and I ate them up. And then I discovered the monsters who are us rather than made out of body parts or kaiju creatures or, Freddy Kruegers and the like. The ones that scared me the most were the ones that didn't look like monsters. Norman Bates, as opposed to the Wolfman, that sort of thing. But I was bitten by it at a very early age. That I was probably 5 or 6 years old watching Son of Kong. And I was the only one in the family. I had 3 siblings, my mother and father. None of them were particularly drawn to the genre, but I was the quiet, weird kid who was also class clown and loved monster movies.
And if you want to listen to the full episode with Mick, you can listen to episode 653 of This Is Horror podcast. Or if you want the video version, it is available on YouTube. youtube.com/@thisishorror-podcast. And if you would like other inspirational clips from past episodes, please do follow us on TikTok and Instagram @thisishorror-podcast. Well, that about does it for another episode. So until next time with Dan Howarth, take care of yourself, be good to one another, read horror, keep on writing, and have a great, great day.
This is Horror Podcast.